This chair is really high off the ground. Hello creatives, my name's Josh from Videos by Josh, and today I want to show you the behind the scenes look at my corporate video shoot. The goal of this project was to film roughly 50 interviews for a local furniture company where I would have people coming in and out throughout the day. I needed an interview setup to accommodate just a busy schedule, essentially. People coming in and out, people of different sizes and different voices. So I wanted to make something here at their office. Let's take a look at some of the equipment that I'm using to film this corporate shoot.
So here's what the setup looks like when it's ready to go. We have the lights off and essentially just waiting.
So what stands out to you immediately? That would probably be what's overhead. This is an 8x8 Westcott scrim, which is being held up by some wooden supports and C-stands. Firing down on me through the scrim right now are two Aperture 120Ds. One is being used as a key light right here, and then the other is coming as a backlight right there. Behind me, you'll see I have a 10-foot green screen, which is being held up by a photography background. And then lighting that are two additional cob chip lights coming from either angles that are just shooting a nice even light to be used, well, of course, to composite in a background. I have a 4x4 Westcott scrim, which is being used as a bounce to fill in the shadows on this side of my face. And then, of course, what you can't see is the camera, which is my Sony FX3 cinema camera, which is being held on a tripod roughly 15 feet away using an 85mm lens. I also have a small, call it director's paddles, which I look at when I'm doing the interviews, and that's made up of an Atomos Ninja V as well as a Zoom F6 audio recorder. Above my head, which is slightly out of frame, you can't see, is a Rode NTG microphone, which is being held up by a boom arm, which itself is being held up by a series of super clamps and grip heads. Also hidden somewhere is a behind the scenes camera, a DJI action camera, which I've been using to record the interviews behind the scenes. The interviews that I'm doing are on behalf of a furniture company, so they provided the stools and also, you can't really see it, but a rug and some other options if I needed them. To be honest, I think the entire setup is a bit overkill, and I was only able to get away with it because I had the location for so long. They told me, set up in a room, take a week, and you can leave it safely overnight. So I set up this big setup that I think has a lot of advantages. Some of the advantages for this setup are, well, one, the room to move around. Our interview subjects can get quite active because they have the space to. We have lighting in at least a foot in all directions. So we have good coverage for people of all sizes. Another advantage is our ability to take control of the space in the room. So there's at least 8 feet behind me going to the green screen and at least another 12 going to the camera. And we're utilizing wall-to-wall space here. A workaround that I had to do in this space was I wanted a really blurry bokeh background, but I didn't necessarily have the size of room to execute, like to do that. What I ended up doing was creating a composite background which emulated the bokeh I was looking for, which also allowed me to hide some imperfections. So for example, when you're shooting with a green screen, it's often recommended you shoot at a more closed off f-stop, like f8.0, but I couldn't because of the lack of light. So you might notice that there are little blurry fringy edges around me because we're only at 3.2, but I think the blurry bokeh emulation background does do a good job at hiding those imperfections. Let's talk about the background that I created. The background is composed of a few different layers, the backmost being a monochrome picture of a living room. On top of that, what I actually did was set up some string lights and film them just as bokeh to fill in. I actually filmed them from the same angle that I'm filming the interview from, so the perspective matches up. I then took that bokeh film and I stacked it in 3 layers to create kind of like a large bokeh and then 2 smaller bokehs on top to really fill out the background and give it some volume. On top of that, I added a layer of color grading and a layer of grain, which also covered my subject. And then on the foremost layer, there's a vignette, which helps to hide some of the sharp edges of the talent's knees and wherever we need to focus them in on the center of the frame. Overall, I am happy with how the setup looked. I really like the uniform skylight look on talent. I know that it's kind of a pain to set up, especially with one person, but the way that like the light just kind of brightens up literally everything as a hair, giving it kind of like an airy look, is something that I've been exploring recently. So I like the look a lot, and I think this has been a really good setup for me in this corporate shoot. It will be a pain to set this down though. This is a lot of stuff for one person. So that is a breakdown of my corporate interview setup. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.